This is the Griffin Realty Group Ask-A-Griffin podcast, episode number 37. Is the process different when you're paying cash? Are you a home seller or buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property, but you can't find an easy way to get the answers? Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. Now, to help you get started in the right direction, if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the very near future, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's griffincourses.com. All right, let's get started here. In this episode, we continue in our series on financing. And the question on the table is the process different when you're paying cash? So let's get to the first point here. The first point is you must still be prepared when making a cash offer to match up that money and the features. You see, when somebody is getting a mortgage and they're going through the pre-qualification process, it's not only to determine can they do it and at what level can they do it. It's important to say, all right, I have been pre-approved or pre-qualified to spend a certain level that combines the mortgage amount I qualified for plus the down deposit that they're requiring me. So you look at that and you say, well, I'm cash. I don't need to think about that. Well, yes, you do. The prudent use of your cash would include almost, and I've talked about this in the past podcast episodes, but it would almost include you just taking a beat to say, of all the cash that I have, I would like to allocate this much to the purchase of a property. And you fix that within a discipline. Now, I understand that you may decide to spend more cash because when you go out there and you don't like what you see, you may up that. I understand that. But I still think, and my best advice would be, to give yourself a very prudent, strict range within which you'll stay so that you just stay there. I mean, again, of course, if you have just that much money and you want to throw it away at something and you just want to put it into a hard asset and it's really more an asset, I get that. I'm not talking to you. I'm really talking to that person that's allocating money, cash, towards housing, home, sense of home. It's important to just take a beat. Think about how much do I want to spend? Because then, like the person that has been pre-qualified, the only difference with them is they're putting some of their money down to buy the property, not all of their money to buy the property. That's the only difference. But suffice to say, now you're in the same spot where you've made a determination of how much is going to be allocated towards housing. And that's when the first thing that, again, as a buyer agent, I would suggest to you, we sit down and we take a look at the features of the properties that have been recently purchased at that price plus or minus a little bit of a variance so you can see what that money is buying. And again, we have this difficulty that depending on where you're looking for property, there is really no such thing as homogeneous product in real estate. Everything's even a little bit different, even if they're condo units of the same size. They can be in a different size of the building. You get the point, is that there's variance. But it's still interesting and it's fun. This is fun part of the process to be able to go in and look at, if I were going to spend $900,000 to $1.2 million, what did that just buy in the specific area of Beacon Hill, in the specific area of Osterville? And you can begin to take a look at that point, and you can go back, depending on how robust the market is. If there are not enough sales, you can go back 6 months, 12 months, even over the last couple of years. If you're really going to spend a lot of money, what did the money buy for waterfront, for complete panoramic city view? Whatever it is, you're now seeing what that money bought. And as you look at those properties, as a cash buyer, you ask yourself a simple question. Would I have, if that property were available today, purchased that property? And if not, why not? Very important process to go through here so that when you go out into the marketplace, it's not such a blind process. You're gaining, by doing these things strategically, a sense of control. It's just best practices. After 21 years of doing it as a broker, agent, etc., I just find that even when I buy something myself, I'm informed, I'm empowered. And a good buyer agent is there to empower you and guide you in the direction of being informed so that you ultimately are the one making the decision. Of course, we will give you our opinion. Of course, when you're buying, we can say we believe that this is the right price. Here's why. We did an analysis on the property. It could fall within this range. But ultimately, if that's not happening on the fly for the first time, in the moment that you walk through a property, see, a lot of people get excited. I'd like to go see some properties in downtown Boston. I want to see everything with a river view. And now all of a sudden we're out at, we're looking along the Charles River View back bay, and we're taking a look at what we can see, and we're in there for the first time and get all excited. And all of a sudden we want to, spend that money. Well, it's a competitive situation. See what I'm saying? I'm even picking up the pace of the podcast so you feel what's actually happening. It's getting frenetic. Now, again, you might be fine with that. That's okay. This is just about best practices, which, by the way, I would apply to all of you and suggest you please heed the advice. But for all of you that take the time to have a more informed decision, you don't have to rush. So let me get to the next point here. After you've made that decision about what the money buys and you've allocated an amount of money and you have a feeling for what's there, you can go looking at it. But remember what's going to happen is that there's another reason to be prepared. And that is that you really need to remember that the seller and the listing agent don't know you, let alone your own buyer's agent. We don't know you intimately and financially when we're representing you. So it's important that you have proof of funds. This is a really important concept. And don't be so affronted or take offense when somebody asks you, do you have proof of funds ready? That's part of the business transaction. So put your logical business mind on. Nobody's questioning whether or not you have this financial power in your life. This is not an attack on you. This is business. If we are going to represent you in the field, we know in the process you're going to arrive at negotiation. And when you arrive at negotiation, the presentation of the offer is everything. That first step is everything. So when you have a proof of funds, what you're simply saying to the seller is, I don't have a mortgage contingency. I am willing to pay all cash for your property at this offer price. And here is the proof of funds. Now, this opens up a big conversation. Most people believe that proof of funds means that you have to go get a copy of your bank statement showing that. That is not true. I don't know where that tradition came up, but it is not true. And if you're a good buyer agent, I don't believe that's prudent at all. I think what you should be doing is simply, when you're deciding how much cash you want to spend, you're also in communication with your banker, the person who intimately knows how much cash is in that account. And to be properly prepared for the first offer, in my very strong belief, you simply need a letter from that bank on their letterhead from that banker that says you have the ability to pay all cash in a reasonably short amount of time. Again, because that's going to have to do with the offer itself. What's the time frame within which you're supposed to present this cash? It just says you can consummate this sort of a transaction inside this sort of time period. For further questions, feel free to call, and then the bank manager's name is down there, or whomever is handling the account, that you are liquid. Because if the listing agent is prudent, they're not only going to just ask for it, but when considering the offer, they're going to pick up the phone and call the banker and say, I have an offer for X amount that is supposed to close in X period of time. Is this a reasonable situation for this buyer? That's it. It's that easy. Again, presuming that it is on the bank, the letterhead of the bank, and it's a reputable, well-known bank, which obviously with the banking laws and rules, pretty easy to figure that one out. And so you pick up the phone, and now the listing agent has a level of confidence. And as a buyer agent, we would be suggesting, please feel free to call the bank manager. She's expecting your call. So that's really why we start off by being prepared as a cash buyer or asking you to be prepared. So not only are you comfortable spending the money, because remember, in the heat of that negotiation, if you haven't really considered what you really want to spend and what you want to limit it to, that you're going to get stressed out during negotiation. And you might be going into a negotiation where you have set a hard limit on this and it's competitive. You just need to know that's the time to walk away rather than starting to chase it and spend more cash than you wanted. See, again, you see what preparation does? It prepares you for the heat of the moment negotiation where we all tend to have our emotions take over and not our logic. So if we start off logically prepared, correctly prepared, we're in a much better position. And now we can make the case to the seller that we are one of the best offers. And that leads to the final point here. Paying cash does not always carry the same weight in all types of markets. So most cash buyers have the presumption, and it can be inaccurate thinking in some cases, that they have the right to a discount if they pay cash. Now, in some cases, that's very true. I've worked with very strong, wealthy developers who have come in with very strong cash offers, absolutely no other contingencies, and a closing date. And that is a very enticing offer to a seller who wants to and needs to especially end their situation and get liquid quickly. So in that sort of a scenario, yes, cash carries a lot of weight, but also the no contingencies part carries a lot of weight. So you see, there are variables in an offer of which, whether we're using a mortgage contingency or showing proof of funds for cash, that's only one part of the puzzle. There are other parts of the puzzle, including inspections, including other properties to sell, contingencies like that, including the mortgage process, which kicks down contingencies 30 days at least. So you see, in that case, cash is king, cash is powerful. But let's imagine a really hot market. Let's go to the downtown Boston market, which for years was extremely strong. Post-recession, Beacon Hill, Back Bay, the gold standard, really those marketplaces were very strong. And you would often see multiple offers on really quality product, especially if it had been tastefully updated. So in that case, there are some people that might have bid higher than, see, again, let's presume the cash buyer comes in and I'm all cash and I can close without a contingency. Great. But what if somebody with a mortgage contingency came in another 10% higher? Well, if you're looking at a seller who doesn't have to sell that quickly, understands that mortgaged buyer has been vetted properly as well, that their listing agent has called the mortgage broker and vetted that situation, then it's a matter of price. So don't assume that when paying cash, you always carry the same clout, because that's just not the case. So be realistic about what type of market it is, and again, sometimes in a poor market, a product that comes on the market is so wonderful, it doesn't matter what the economy's doing. There is a hot market for that. See, that's just a generalized misperception that, well, this is a buyer's market. But then all of a sudden, this pristine property comes on, priced perfectly for the current market, and nobody can believe that they didn't get it because it was gone in the first day. See what I'm saying is that be realistic about what's in front of you in the marketplace, regardless of what the global perception is. And this is why being properly prepared and being aggressively ready to make a move matters in all markets, okay? So let me go back and summarize this. We're finishing up our series on financing, asking the question, is the process different when you're paying cash? And the points here that we've covered, you must still be prepared before making a cash offer to match money and features. The second point was, remember that the seller and listing agent don't know you, so be prepared to have your proof of funds so that they can get to know you. Paying cash does not always carry the same weight in all types of markets, so be realistic about the situation that's in front of you, not your perception. Let me summarize it this way. When you decide to pay cash for a property, it's still important to recognize that you are going into a buying process, not an event. Therefore, best practices include determining the amount you want to pay and what the money is buying right now, securing a written letter from your banker that you have the ability to pay cash, and recognizing that cash is not always the most important factor for a seller. All right, now remember this. You can take immediate action to get started in this kind of a strategic direction so you're properly prepared if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the near future by getting our complete free step-by-step guides at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. Also, don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen so that you don't miss out on any of the insights each time we upload an episode. We also post all of our episodes on our social media channels, so remember to turn on your notifications for Griffin Realty Group, and you won't miss the reminders. We'd also appreciate it if you would share our content with other people thinking about selling or buying so that they get the help that they need. Now, thanks for listening, but remember this. Nobody's coming for you. Agents, anybody, the marketplace. We're here to help, but nobody's coming for you. So you need to take action and get to work on your own plan for properly buying or selling property. But we'll see you in the next episode to help you get prepared. Thanks for listening.